You know what's strange?
The people you admire most probably failed at three other things before they found what made them legendary. Not because they were unfocused, because they were building a system nobody told them they needed. We've been sold this myth that mastery means choosing one thing at 15 and grinding it for 10,000 hours. Early specialization, single-minded focus. And if you're 25 and still trying to figure it out, you're already behind. Except that's not how it actually works for the people doing things that matter. The ones solving real problems, creating things that last, building work that changes fields. They didn't get there by narrowing early. They got there by staying wide longer than anyone said they should. And when you understand why breadth beats depth in almost everything that matters, the way you build your life will never be the same. I spent years feeling like I was wasting time, jumping between interests, learning things that didn't connect to a clear career path. Watching people around me specialize while I was still curious about too many things. I thought I was scattered, undisciplined, falling behind while everyone else was stacking skills in one vertical. But then I started paying attention to the people whose work actually moved me, and none of them had a straight line. If this is hitting you right now, save this. You'll need it the next time someone asks what your 5-year plan is, and you don't have a clean answer. Let's start with someone you know, Steve Jobs. Dropped out of college but stuck around to audit classes that interested him. One of them was calligraphy. He learned about serif fonts, about spacing, about what makes typography beautiful. Seemed completely useless for a tech career. 10 years later, he's designing the Macintosh, and it becomes the first computer with beautiful fonts. He said later that if he'd never taken that calligraphy class, personal computers might never have had multiple typefaces. A random curiosity in art became the foundation for how 1 billion people interface with technology. Or take Hayao Miyazaki. Studied economics and political science in college. Wanted to be a manga artist but couldn't draw well. Worked in animation as an in-betweener, the lowest position, until his early 20s. Didn't direct his first film until he was 38. Didn't make Spirited Away his masterpiece until he was 60. His breadth, political theory, economics, ecology, folklore, became the depth of his films. They're not just animated stories. They're philosophical works that happen to be animated. Here's one that'll surprise you. Richard Feynman, Nobel Prize-winning physicist. Also studied biology, learned to draw, played bongos in a samba band, taught himself to crack safes during the Manhattan Project just because he was curious how locks worked. People told him he was diluting his genius, that he should focus only on physics. But he said those side pursuits weren't distractions. They were how he avoided getting stuck in one way of thinking. Biology informed his physics. The art changed how he visualized problems. Breadth didn't weaken his depth. It made his depth more creative. Comment one word right now. Specialist or generalist? I want to know how you see yourself. Now let's talk about what we're actually afraid of. We think if we try multiple things, we'll never be great at anything. We'll be mediocre at 5 things instead of excellent at 1. But that fear is based on a model of the world that doesn't exist anymore. It assumes you're trying to compete in a kind environment, where rules are clear, feedback is immediate, and repetition equals mastery. Like chess. Like golf. Like classical music performance. But most of what you actually want to do with your life isn't like that. Career decisions? Wicked environment. Rules change every 5 years. Building a business? Wicked. Feedback is delayed and often misleading. Creating anything new? Wicked. There's no rule book because it hasn't been done before. Relationships? Wicked. Meaning? Wicked. Almost everything that makes life worth living happens in wicked environments. And wicked environments don't reward early specialization. They reward range. Here's the data. Researchers studied thousands of patents to see which ones had the most impact. The breakthrough innovations weren't coming from people who went deepest in one field. They came from people who worked across multiple technology classes and merged ideas from different domains. The most valuable skill wasn't expertise. It was the ability to transfer knowledge across contexts. To see a pattern in one field and apply it somewhere else. To stand at the intersection of disciplines and say, what if we combine this with that? Take Elon Musk. Say what you want about him, but look at what he's actually built. He studied physics and economics, taught himself rocket science by reading textbooks, applied first principles thinking from physics to business problems, merged software knowledge with manufacturing, He's not the world's best physicist or the best engineer or the best entrepreneur. He's someone who can move between all three and see what specialists in each field miss. Or look at Naval Ravikant. Started as a programmer, studied economics and philosophy, became an angel investor. Now he's known for synthesizing ideas from evolutionary biology, game theory, meditation practices, and startup strategy into frameworks that millions of people use. His influence doesn't come from being the deepest expert in one thing. It comes from being able to connect insights across domains in ways that feel obvious only after he points them out. Wait, here's where this gets really practical, because I'm not telling you to just wander forever and hope it works out. There's a system here. A way to build range without feeling lost. Anthony Bourdain was a chef for 20 years. Good, but not exceptional. At 44, he wrote an article about the restaurant industry. It went viral. He wrote a book. It became a bestseller. He became a travel documentarian. He ended up creating some of the most culturally important TV of the last 20 years. Not because he abandoned cooking, because he combined cooking with writing, with anthropology, with storytelling, with his experience of addiction and recovery and curiosity about other cultures. His range made him irreplaceable. Mr. Beast tried gaming content for years. It didn't work. Tried vlogging. Failed. Made fail compilations, reaction videos, comedy sketches. Most of it got no views. He was experimenting, learning editing, studying what worked on the platform, failing in public. Then he found the format, extreme challenges with high production value that combined everything he'd learned. Now he's the biggest creator on YouTube. But if you only saw the end result, you'd think he was an overnight success who specialized early. The years of trying different things looked like wasting time. They were building the system. This is what nobody tells you. Specialization isn't wrong. It's just late stage. You don't start there. You earn your way there by first building range, by trying things that seem unrelated, by following curiosity even when it doesn't fit a career plan, by learning skills in one domain that you'll apply in another domain 5 years later in ways you can't predict now. So here's the system. I call it the Bridge Builder Framework. It's how you use range without feeling like you're just avoiding commitment. Step 1, track your attempts. Write down the different things you've tried, learned, or been curious about. Don't filter. Don't judge whether they're useful. Just map them. Most people look at their past and see chaos. You're going to start seeing building blocks. Step 2, find the meta skills. What did you actually learn? Not the surface skill, but the transferable one. Maybe you worked retail and learned how to read people's emotions in real time. Maybe you played video games and developed pattern recognition. Maybe you studied history and learned how to evaluate sources. These meta skills are what transfer across everything. Step 3, look for intersections. Where do two of your interests or skills overlap in a way that almost nobody else has? This is your unique position, your unfair advantage. It's not depth in one thing. It's the combination that only you have. Steve Jobs at the intersection of technology and liberal arts. Miyazaki at the intersection of animation and political philosophy. You at the intersection of whatever you've been building. Step 4, specialize from breadth. Now you choose depth. But you're not choosing blindly at 18. You're choosing after you've explored, after you've built range. Your specialization will be more creative, more resilient, more valuable because it's built on a foundation of breadth. Roger Federer eventually committed to tennis, but he did it after playing 6 other sports. His depth was richer because of the width he built first. When you do this, something shifts. You stop apologizing for your curiosity. You stop feeling behind because you haven't committed to one track. You start seeing that the people doing the most interesting work aren't the ones who chose earliest. They're the ones who stayed open longest and then went deep from a position of breadth. You used to think you were unfocused. Now you realize you were building bridges between islands that other people don't even know exist. You used to think mastery meant depth. Now you understand it means range first, then depth. You used to compare yourself to the people who specialized at 16. Now you see you're playing a different game entirely. And in a complex world, your game is the one that wins. Hold that. That's you realizing your curiosity wasn't a liability. It was the strategy all along. Remember when you thought you needed to pick one thing and go all in? That anxiety that trying multiple things meant you'd never be great at anything? Here's the truth nobody mentions. The people who become irreplaceable aren't the ones who went deepest in the narrowest track. They're the ones who went wide enough to see connections that specialists miss, who built range across domains, who could stand at intersections and create things that single-field experts never could. Being a generalist doesn't make you average. It makes you rare. Because in a world that's increasingly complex and wicked, the ability to transfer knowledge across fields, to synthesize ideas from different domains, to see patterns others can't, that's not a backup plan. That's the main skill. That's what makes you good at anything. Not because you practiced one thing for 10,000 hours. Because you built a system of learning that works everywhere. If this gave you permission to trust your own path even when it doesn't look like anyone else's, stay here. This is what we build. Not the advice that sounds clean. The truth that actually works when life doesn't fit in a box. Maybe mastery isn't about going deeper into one thing. Maybe it's about going wider across enough things that you become the only person who can see what needs to be connected. And that's when everything you tried, everything you learned, everything that looked like wandering, that's when it becomes the system. The one that makes you not just good at one thing, but capable of anything.